Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
I found my way to the power source, and brightest day and blackest night. No evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's land. Ring capacity 46.1, ring capacity 58.9, ring capacity 64.5.
Let's go ahead and get into it. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I'm Sid Part 2. Joining me today is...
A geek for fun.
Indeed. And today we're doing a character discussion. Alfie, what character are we discussing today?
We are discussing someone who... I mean, it's going to be an interesting one because there's actually a lot I want to say about this character that doesn't necessarily relate to the character, but like the implications of how we treat characters like this. And I think that's fitting because this character's first appearance was quite impactful and had a lot to say. And I think for many people, this character has represented what Green Lantern is for a generation that grew up on the Justice League cartoon. So despite that, he's been relatively underserved. So with that long introduction out of the way, it is John Stewart.
Indeed. So yeah, John Stewart is one of these characters who, like, I grew up watching the Green Lantern, or not Green Lantern, the Justice League show with John Stewart as Green Lantern. That's kind of just who I knew of as Green Lantern. And then when I found out Hal existed, I kind of had the Superman's boring, he's overpowered reaction to Hal Jordan. I'm like, Hal Jordan's boring, he's uncreative. And then, I read John's run and it kind of made me fall in love with the blockhead. But, like, John Stewart, I think, is just this really, really popular Green Lantern character, probably because of the connection to the Justice League show. But he's a character who, I kind of hate to say it, I don't like John Stewart as a character as he appears in comics. And that's through no fault of his own. John Stewart is a character who just, people have no idea what to do with. They really don't understand him on any level. I've gone back and I've read some issues of John Stewart's initial appearances, written by, Denny O'Neil with, what's his name? That did the art. Oh, shit.
Neil Adams.
Yeah, thank you. Neil Adams doing the art and stuff. I read some of John Stewart's original appearances, and I think he's a really cool and interesting character there. And he... At that point, he's pretty transparently serving as a voice box for, the creator's political outrage at segregation and racial disparity in the United States. That's what John Stewart serves for. That's why John Stewart doesn't wear a mask. I own one old school John Stewart comic, and I don't own it because of John Stewart. I own it because it's got the Mogo backup. Mogo's original story, but there's the cover is John Stewart taking off the mask and being celebrated by the people, with Hal Jordan standing on the sidelines in his civvies, and there's a speech bubble on it to the effect of I'm not gonna be like you, I'm gonna show the people who a real Green Lantern is, and Hal's like, you're not supposed to do it this way, and and that's a big political statement to show that he's not an alien, he's not some kind of creature that kind of looks human but has this weird skin color. He is a black man and a superhero. It's this big empowering thing. And I think that's really, really great. And I really miss reading that John Stewart. Because otherwise, the character is just stuck in a myriad of comic book limbo where people don't want to do that kind of character for John. and it's a goddamn tragedy.
I did my usual shtick, which if you've listened to the show on Cat Discussion, anytime, you know, what's that time? Well, thank you. It's first appearances of a character with a Geek for Fun. It's a new segment. As I went and read Green Lantern issue 87, and I was extremely impressed. Is that moment you're mentioning from the cover is in his very first story. The moment he gets the costume, the first thing he does is take off the mask and say, this is the one thing I'm not game for. I'll say your goofy oath, I'll wear your snazzy costume, but I'm not hiding. I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to be ashamed of. This is me. I'm letting it all out there. And Hal is kind of just like, again, taken aback. And Hal Jordan has done a good role in kind of being the punching bag a lot of the time for progression in comics, and not necessarily in a bad way, but he's there as the standard mock superhero of what came before the standard model. That new wave of thinking can be bounced off, and him coming around to it was a very good way for encouraging people who would be on the fence given time periods and such to understand why this is a positive thing to have that character in. Again, you can make the argument now, well, they should just get it anyway, but sadly a lot of people do need that surrogate to get a point told to them sometimes. So Hal served that very well without compromising himself. But John just comes on. He's already, before he's even Green Lantern, he's sticking up to people. He's going against police officers. His first mission is he has to protect a racist senator. And he's immediately just fucking bullshitted with this. He sprays him with oil, and then he says he blacked up. Like, some of that stuff is just like, it really reminds me of how Morrison did Young Superman, of just fuck the authority, fuck the system. I'm not a cop. I'm a superhero. I'm a man of the people. I'm sending a message. I'm fighting injustice. Which I'm always so for, and it's only become more and more relevant as time comes on. So you introduce John Stewart as this character, as the Green Lantern, who is brought into this police force effectively, who is not a cop, who does not follow those rules. And that's why I think he's a natural fit to put on the Justice League, probably more than any other Green Lantern, is he's the one who is the superhero. John Stewart is the guy who is in the mold of it, in the same way that Sue Storm is the only superhero on the Fantastic Four. Everyone else is kind of doing their own archetype. John Stewart, his infamy out of all the Green Lanterns is Hal's the Daredevil, Hal's the Thrill Seeker, Guy's the in-joke, like Guy's the logical exaggeration of what happens when you have a guy with no fear. They're an asshole. Like that's the thing we never admit, but Guy exists to say that. Then you get Jessica, and she's the one who invited fear, and then you get your boy Kyle, who is Jesus.
Space Jesus, thank you.
He's the Messiah. He's the idea of, if you have a cosmic hero taken to the extreme, is he's just beyond cause and systems. He's the new wave. He's the usher in. So in that group, very much like the Robins, you can kind of miss characterization. You can wonder, okay, what do I do with this character? John Stewart, I think, immediately is just like, well, he's the guy who's the Earth-based guy. He's all about the problems on Earth, and then taking that lessons to go to other planets and dealing with the social injustices. He's the guy who's doing that, the champion of the oppressed moniker that Superman has. He's taking that spirit and he's taking it even further across the entire galaxy. That's his in. That's great. You've got it. And then Zanshi happens.
Yep, Jon Stewart just like all they can think to do with Jon Stewart is just load him with guilt. Which is, like, Jon Stewart in his initial appearance is nothing but self-confidence, and I love it. Jon Stewart is this just proud black man kind of character. And I mean, we could maybe talk a little bit about the problems of white guys writing characters outside their wheelhouse, but at the same time, DC wasn't going to let anyone else do it at the time. So you kind of just got to be grateful for what you can get, even if it comes from like a kind of source. But just Jon Stewart was this like, you know, archetype of this proud, uncompromising hero. And then as writers got less and less comfortable, as the character was handed off to other writers and they got less comfortable with how to write that, what to do with that, they just started to try to do things that directly undermined Jon's self-confidence. And so then, yeah, you get Jon blew up a planet. Well, that sucks. And Alfie, I wish I could tell you that was the only planet he blew up. You know who my favorite non-human Green Lantern is? It's Mogo. You know who killed Mogo? Jon Stewart killed Mogo.
Whoa, what?
Yeah.
Fuck, Zanchi? Why did this go? Hold on. Who the fuck cares about that shit? He hurt Mogo. When was this? I'm glad he got better, but fuck.
yeah. And like it happened at the like just to demonstrate how much writers don't know what to do with Jon Stewart. The Green Lantern Corps book during Jeff Johns' run became the Kyle and Guy book because that was the take that that Tomasi had. He knew how to write those two characters, and he wrote Kyle and Guy really, really well. So I don't even know if it was Tomasi's issue at the time, but there was a big crossover right before the New 52 started, and the story arc was called War of the Green Lanterns, and the Green Lantern Corps was being taken over, and rings were just being sent out like crazy. Everyone in the universe was going to get a Green Lantern ring if it kept going unchecked. And if you put one on, you became like a slave to the Guardians because the Guardians were evil. It was a whole fucking thing. So the four corpsmen, Hal, Kyle, Guy, and Jon, put on rings from other corps and went to go save the day. And Jon put on a compassion ring, and they needed to go stop Mogo because Mogo was the one sending out all the rings. And they get to Mogo's corps to try to like talk to him and stop him, and all they find is Black Lantern energy because of some shit that happened in Blackest Night. And Jon absorbs that with a compassion ring and decides the only way to save the day is to kill Mogo. And that's the story. And then, like, what makes it worse, you get, like, an epilogue issue that's dealing with it, and all the other Green Lanterns are like, I don't trust Jon, he killed Mogo, that's like sacrilege to the Corps. And Kyle sits there and tries to like talk it up. He's like, no, listen, you know, he was wearing a compassion ring and he had a bunch of Black Lantern energy going through his head at the time. It wasn't really his fault, and also the stress of the situation, he had to do something. And Jon cuts him off. He's like, no, Kyle, I made that choice, don't try to put that on anyone else. I made the hard choice because that's what someone has to do. And I'm like, You decided now was the time to bring back Jon Stewart's self-confidence after he just killed Mogo? What?
Yeah, that kind of goes into one of the things I did want to really talk about, because I think Jon Stewart is the one that exemplifies this the most. And I'm really curious to talk about this with you over every other person in the world, because you're like the one guy I know who's like super well versed in Jon's work specifically for Green Lantern. Is Jon Stewart is the biggest example of the massive militarization of Green Lantern as a franchise that happened in the 2000s.
Certainly.
The fact that we've taken this character and we've taken this symbol whose his first act was fighting a US senator, and we've made him the soldier Green Lantern.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, that's baked into his origin. he was a Marine. Like,
Of course.
That's part
But
of his
it didn't-
history. And so it's a little like you got to do something with that. You do have to like you can't be a guy who will never listen to authority, because then you have to deal with like, okay, then why the fuck did he join the Marines? But at the same time, you ever heard of what the very first thing a soldier does once they're discharged?
No.
Get a job and quit. Because you get a job, work long enough till they tell you to do something you don't want to do, and then quit because now you can. That's like a real thing. A lot of businesses won't, well, like they'll be like, oh yeah, we'll hire veterans, but we won't hire them the first time because they kind of know to expect it. And so like that I do think does fit Jon Stewart as a character, having that guy like maybe that's why he is so strongly outspoken about abuses of power and stuff, is because he entered the military, maybe a starry-eyed kid, and came out a man with disillusionment about what a military force can be and how bad things can go and how like abusive a system like that can be. I think that has tons of potential for a Jon Stewart origin story. But yeah, when you put him on the Green Lantern Corps and he doesn't get the opportunity to do that because, by and large, the Green Lantern Corps maybe... I don't know. The Green Lantern Corps, unfortunately, is very military-coded, which is fine. I actually quite like the idea. I like the idea of going, okay, the notions of the highly organized military thing, taking those kind of propaganda images. I actually kind of like the idea of taking that and making it a force for good legitimately. I think that's the kind of idea, is like the Green Lantern Corps is the army where all the problems are solved, and it actually does what it's supposed to do, as opposed to being used for political gains and stuff, and fear-mongering. I like the idea of the of Oa being this society that's created to protect the universe and nothing else. And maybe the Guardians are a little just too removed from it all, and they can't see the forest through the trees, kind of thing. Or maybe they can't see the trees for the forest. But all of that, I think, could be really interesting. Unfortunately, that's just not how it's written, right? Like, the Guardians are secretly evil every other week. They have the Professor X syndrome of like, why are you not just in jail? Like, come the fuck on. You've done terrible things. You're a bad person. Just go away. Like, the Guardians have that like crazy. Like, the whole event I just talked about, War of the Green Lanterns, it started because the Guardians decided that they want to create another... Or is that the arc? I get it all confused. The end of John's run kind of blurs together. In any case, there's an arc called Rise of the Third Army, where the Guardians are adjusting people's DNA to mimic their own and turn the entire universe into non-thinking like automatons that will only react to their beck and call. That's a thing.
It's just one of those things, man, where you take a concept, which is the idea of the Lanterns serving the Guardians. At least, again, I'm relatively new to Green Lantern fandom, so if I'm completely off basis, I don't relatively care, because if it's not this, then this is what I think it should be. It's just that they exist as this ancient, wise civilization that came across the idea that, okay, how do we save the universe? We make the superhero. We make a champion who comes from the people. They don't make things and then send them off to people. They tried that, it didn't work. They asked people from their communities to rise up to help their own communities from within, and then to go out and spread that knowledge and integrate themselves with the rest of the universe. It's a very progressive anti-fascist take on superheroism. A lot of people like to critique like Batman as like, oh well, he is kind of usurping his will on the populace and stuff. I was like, Green Lantern is kind of just choosing people who are best suited to the feel. Like, it's the hard take, right? It's just choosing people who are best suited to the will to rise up and kind of become those shining beacons of that group. So by having that authority, the natural thing you want to have is with a character like Hal Jordan. Well, yes, it will question that authority, but what the story there should be: the Guardians exist, and they know this. They create the Green Lanterns to question them as well, to keep them in check, and the Green Lanterns are there with the Guardians to be able to talk to them to keep them in check. It's the boss turned positive. You're no longer dealing with someone you need to answer to. You're dealing with a sensei or a sage, or how Morrison's been doing it in the Green Lantern, which I've been reading. These like ancient gurus, more so than like anything else. So that's the way you go. And then having a character like Jon Stewart, you get the ultimate thing where he can call them out on their shit, but at the same time, they know when push comes to shove, he's not going to completely go off half cut like someone like Hal Jordan will. So you got a cool like kind of dynamic there. When you go so far into making the Guardians morally corrupt or morally evil and having these things go back and forth, just like the Professor X thing, you start to question, is the core of the idea then wrong? Like, you should, if these people who made this idea are so awful, why are we even Green Lanterns anymore? Shouldn't we just make something new? The thing with the X-Men, right? It's just like, well, maybe fuck. Why are we just the X-Men if Professor X is so crazy all the time? Let's just make something new, right? It's like, you don't get the example of Batman or Wonder Woman or Superman, of these like characters getting to choose to do good and like having like a pure noble idea to strive towards. The superheroism of Green Lantern as an idea and as a wish fulfillment, as a cool cosmic concept, gets really diluted the more and more you make these heroes guys who follow orders, the guys who are the cops in a world of superheroes, and not like the positive examples we've listed. I'd like to help, but jurisdiction says I can't. That kind of bullshit in a DC superhero comic. Get the fuck out of there. And Jon Stewart's the #1 guy of that. Jon Stewart is as much as I love Snyder's Justice League run, the fucking multiverse is collapsing in on itself. And Jon Stewart's like, I can't help Batman. I'm on duty. It's like, fuck off.
Yeah, no, that shit gets so ridiculous. Like, and that's kind of the thing with Jon Stewart, is he just gets forgotten about, for that reason, for the unfortunate sense of just becoming, not wanting to push boundaries, not wanting to rock the boat. And when you have a character who's created to purposefully rock the boat, that it's a problem. You know, it took me a minute. I was going through the DC wiki here. So you said Jon Stewart's first appearance was 87, right?
Yes, Green Lantern 87.
You're correct. The cover I'm talking about, where Jon Stewart's now finally become Green Lantern and doing stuff, like, is the main lead of the book. 188. It took 100 issues. Isn't that crazy? It took more than Tom King's run on Batman to get Jon Stewart to be Green Lantern. Yeah, that's crazy. Anyway, but so Jon Stewart, though, he's created to rock the boat, and so many writers just don't want to do that, but they want to use the most popular Green Lantern, including fucking Justice League, the animated series. You know, like, I grew up with the show. I like the show. Jon Stewart's cool in the show. Jon Stewart doesn't get any fucking episodes. Like, Jon Stewart is so overlooked in that series. It's kind of ridiculous. There's 2 Green Lantern-centric arcs in that series. There's like 4 Batman ones. There's a bunch of Superman ones. Hell, Superman gets both. Yeah, Superman gets every season finale? Except for
better
Hawkgirl.
or what?
Yeah, Hawkgirl gets 1 season finale. Superman gets the others. As far as like what characters are the main focus here. Like that's it. You know, Jon Stewart gets kind of written off there, and like I mean, I'll give him a little credit. They do the Xanshi thing of Jon Stewart blew up a planet, and then they just kind of like sweep it under the rug. It's like, okay, he thought he did it. It did actually happen. It's all okay. I'm like, okay, good.
Like the one thing from Green Lantern law, they are allowed to change. It's like, okay,
I mean, they improved it greatly. So like, but no, Jon Stewart doesn't get much to do. He isn't calling people out on stuff. Jon Stewart's mostly just there to, you know, oh, my ring ran out of juice. What are we supposed to do? I was watching Watchtower Database, and they pointed out that Phil Lamar always says "supposed" like that. That's his enunciation of "supposed" when he's Jon Stewart. It's great. But you know, Jon Stewart isn't this call out kind of character, and so it kind of leads me to the question of: is Jon Stewart a call out character? If through the majority of his history he has been relegated to the background, to the guy that essentially just follows orders and keeps his damn mouth shut, if he's just kind of there to be the, you know, token Green Lantern and black guy of the team, good, we can check off 2 boxes, is he the call-out character anymore?
Well, I mean, what I would say to that is no, but he has the potential to be, and all it will take is one writer to change that. I have my sign-off on this show as the champion of the oppressed, and I'm all about social justice Superman. You look at the history of the character Superman. First 10 years of publication, he's got that. Then he's in the 2010s with Morrison's, barely like four years tops-ish. That's like 14, 20 years if you're being generous, out of the character's 80-year history where he's actually the champion of the oppressed. And the majority of that time, he's always on the left, but it's in the very, well, I can't do anything to change things, but maybe you can, kind of thing. He very much does fall under the same banner as Jon Stewart. But more, I guess what stands out more about Jon is he isn't Superman. He doesn't have to be one of the big 3. Well, these characters can't change or say anything too radically because their books are what we need to sell. He is meant to be not even the main Green Lantern. He's the new take. He's the thing that's meant to throw things off. He should be an indie creator's darling. He should be the voice you use. He should be when Morrison made Calvin Ellis. He should be the idea of like how Bendis did with Miles Morales, of just like, well, yeah, we can't say this shit with Peter Parker. We can't make Peter Parker a black guy because comics aren't ready for that, apparently. But fuck it. I can still make Spider-Man say these things. I can still get this character to do everything. Same Jessica Cruz feels like she's almost Jon Stewart done right. And Simon Baz is a good example of Jon Stewart done wrong again. Of Jessica Cruz, people got her deal and the statement she was trying to make, and the idea about the strength of her character, of why she has actual thematic weight. She's not just another guy in a costume. She's actually got something to her, and people picked up on that. Even people who haven't done the best stories, like they immediately kind of get it, to the point where like the show has carried that on. Jon Stewart, because for some reason, I don't know. Again, I don't want to name names or say things, but like it is very telling, his treatment, and also why a certain subset of fans who don't like more outspoken characters list him as one of the good ones.
That is exactly it. Jon Stewart has unfortunately become one of the good ones, one of the good black guys. Black characters, you know, it's just, oh yeah, well, he's not a big political outspoken thing. When he was introduced, he was.
Legit.
That was his strength. And then after that, he's mainly just been there to be cool looking or whatever. He doesn't get to speak out anymore. And like, the funny thing is, I say he doesn't get to speak out. Jon Stewart's version of speaking out is saying, I don't speak out anymore. It's time for me to start doing that. Like, that happens, I swear, 3 fucking times with the Johns run. It happens in Rebirth. It happens again during the Alpha Lanterns bit. And I swear, it's so fucking annoying. Jon Stewart, unfortunately, just doesn't get much to do. I don't think that people have the right voice for him. And it's sad. Because he is such a an important character, especially because of his exposure to the larger communities. Like, again, one of my favorite tweets I've ever seen was when the first trailer for the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie dropped, and someone said, man, Marvel be fucking up by changing Green Lantern to a white guy. I love that. I love the fact that in the popular consciousness, Jon Stewart has the potential to take over the reins from Hal Jordan. Like, he is more popularly known as Green Lantern than Hal Jordan is. That's awesome.
It's a shame that they haven't capitalized on that in the way that, like, again, here's Star Trek, but if you fucking got someone other than a white guy to lead the crew, like that's the conceit. Something I'm really looking forward to, and I really hope it happens, is Mark Russell. He's the current writer. Well, I think it's wrapped up now, but he was writing Wonder Twins. A really, really good talent. He did another really cool book called Second Coming, which is where Jesus meets a Superman analog, and it's fucking fantastic. But he's had a pitch for Jon Stewart that he really wants to do, which is he wants to do basically a romance book with Jon Stewart and his female Green Lantern love interest. I can't remember her name.
Kamatui?
Yeah, that's it. He wants to do a pitch where it's just moving away from the fucking dark cloud that's been on Jon Stewart's life for nearly his entire publication history at this point. Getting to have fun adventures on multiple planets while telling a romance story throughout in a way that isn't really done in mainline comic books. And even if that's not the big political statement that Jon Stewart actually really should be doing, I think it's a needed step just to get him out of his rut. Because like you said, a lot of writers are aware of this, but a lot of their response is, okay, I'm going to say he's made this change, and I'll leave it to the other guy. And that's how you get the Johns thing out of him. Just keeps saying he's going to change, but he never does. I think the move is to then just start telling Jon Stewart stories where he's allowed to be a character outside of that. And then once you've got him back, you've got him firm, and people respect him, and people think of him for things other than genocide. That's when the strength of the character will really shine again. Because, like, legit, I'm only into it now, and I can, like, say, like, Green Lantern's probably got to be the best fucking track record for legacy characters in the entire comics. Like, all of them have got, like, an it. All of them have got, like, a thing like, oh, yeah, that's what this character's about. Even Simon Baz, the one I've had to struggle is trying to think of one. Even he's got more to him than, like, say, like Stephanie Brown as a Robin or something. Like, there's.
You don't have to try to get into my pants, Alfie. It's fine.
No, man. I'm legit just talking straight facts right now, fam. It's just one of those things I've noticed. It's just like not every member of the Flash member is gold. Like, you got Wally and Barry and Jay, and then you keep going down the list, and it gets worse and worse. Like, Bart is good, but, like, again, it's Green Lantern's got nearly 100% track record, especially if you go back to those initial appearances. And I keep harking on it, but, like, it's been 100%. I've never gone back to the original appearance and said, nah, they didn't get it. First off, a lot of the times when someone makes a character and really wants to, like, do a stamp, there is a purity and there's a clarity there that gets lost as sacrifices have to maybe made to editorial, as other writers kind of miss the point. That I do think it is where okay, why was this character created? And it's very, very apparent why Jon Stewart was created.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. He's a really cool character who unfortunately just doesn't get much to do. So yeah, that's kind of all I got for him. As far as recommendations go, his origin issue is really good. Green Lantern Volume 2, number 188 is good, and also you got the Mogo story in the background to look forward to, which is fun. And then I like what the episode does for his character, that Jon Stewart is like, when he thinks he's done something wrong, he's willing to, like, pay the price for it. I think that's a really good story for a superhero as well. You know, that he doesn't try to, like, spend the whole thing clearing his name or any of that. He just, like, no, I blew up that planet. I kind of should have to pay for that. I do like that arc for him in that episode, and how he, you know, like as soon as he realizes it wasn't him, it's like, oh well, now the gloves are off, and you get the really cool, you know, Phil Lamar Green Lantern oath, which is great. So I do really like that that first. That's like the first arc of Justice League. You got the 3-part pilot, and then that's the first 2-parter. I believe it's called In Blackest Night. But then also, just as a Green Lantern fan, I kind of nerd out over the fact that we begin to ask like the legal authority of the Guardians. I find that shit really, really amusing.
Such a dork.
I know. When are we gonna do Goku's legal authority to do things in DBDC? Goku shows up in court. Oh my god, that's a whole fucking episode.
You're right.
Anyway, you got recommendations, sir?
You think you kind of covered them all. My main thing is just there was a podcast. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but if you look up Mark Russell, John Stewart, I just think that's a really interesting listen that makes me excited if he does get a chance to do it, because it very rarely do you get to hear a creator passionately talk about John Stewart in the modern day. And I think if anyone's gonna have like a take for the character and like get him on a good spot, it's either him or if John Stewart's basically begging to get written by Tom King. Like if we're talking of that, so. But I also think King might not be the guy to do it. I don't think we need another sad John Stewart story. I think that's been said and done. So yeah, check out that podcast with Matt Russell talking about John Stewart and his pitch for like the romance book. And then again, I always find the kind of buddy cop dynamic between John Stewart and Wally on Justice League quite endearing. So if you look at like clips of that on YouTube, you'll probably get some good stuff. And I think his romance with Shiera is handled decently well. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in there as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, everyone, thanks very much for watching. I had a great time doing this, Alfie, and we'll see you in the next episode of Geeky Gentlemen. So long.
See ya.